By the way, when you're in the audience and I'm sitting here doing this, based on what we learned today, what do we do? Do we sit there going, I'm waiting for the next bit. I'm waiting for the next bit. What do you do?
Feel good.
Feel good. Guys, you going to say that with me? Feel good.
Feel good.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Come on, better than that. Be happy.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Question. If you're not actively seeking IOIs and avoiding IODs, where does calibration come into it?
The locus of control shifts within yourself. Stay centered.
Your awareness expands from doing the practice.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're not reacting, like this is the question I had. Okay, you're going to shift your awareness every once in a while. When she's doing something that's unacceptable, like you're trying to connect her on a deep level, and you know she's feeling it, but sometimes they resist it. Not because they're dumb, but maybe just because it's so powerful, they don't know what that is.
Sure.
They freak out a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and they maybe do something that's like, you know, maybe like she came in like ball busted you a little bit.
Mhm.
When you're in rapport.
Yeah. Do you want to know have you guys ever heard of a proactive social strategy versus a reactive social strategy?
Yeah.
Good, because I made up that term. I like it. All right. Okay. So a proactive. Okay. People like authenticity. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The definition of proactive, and there's a lot of them, but one of them, and one of the ways I like to look at it, is that being proactive is a series of habits that you just, unconscious or conscious, just series of habits that you go through in your day-to-day existence that, when they come together, handle your problems automatically. So the classic example is like, when the guy comes, he says, I just want this one girl. I just want this one girl. He said, well, hey, man, if you had the habit of going out all the time, it would handle that problem automatically, right? Reactive, on the other hand, is I would call it a short-sighted emotional response to a larger problem. So when I think about a proactive and a reactive social strategy, and I sincerely hope this answers your question, the way that I think about it is people like authenticity. So when I'm speaking with someone, I'm not going to worry. I mean, I might have consideration, but I'm not really too worried about changing who I am to accommodate them. 80, 90, 95% of the time, people will genuinely appreciate that. But a small percentage of the time, when you're doing that, when you're being yourself and quote-unquote don't give a fuck what anyone thinks of you, what is the potential consequence of that every so often?
People freak out because they can't connect to it.
People might be pissed, right? You can't say, man, just don't care what anyone thinks of you, because then everyone will like you. Well, yeah, I mean, most people will like you when you do that because you're being authentic. But guess what? Some people won't. I mean, if you think of it this way, think about a celebrity. What is a celebrity? A celebrity is someone who has the ability to go in the spotlight, right? To have a camera shoved in their face and attention shoved on them and still act the way they act, right? Take someone like Courtney Love, for example. The same way that she is sitting in a room like that, right? Is the same way that she is when you throw cameras on her. So she just does whatever she wants. And what that does is people find it addictive to watch, right? You know the rapper 50 Cent or Tupac? Addictive to watch because you want to see what they're going to do. It's like there's a sort of a voyeurism taking place there of wanting to see what this person who's not constrained will do next. Well, I guess you could say, what is this guy going to do next, And when you have a proactive social strategy, you're making the choice to be authentic and be you and let the chips fall where they may. And you realize that just in doing that will solve 95% of your social situations beautifully and automatically and gracefully. But maybe 5% of the time or 2% of the time, people are not going to like it. What about a reactive social strategy? A reactive social strategy is where you keep trying to modify yourself and adapt yourself for every type of situation. So what would be like the ultimate reactive social strategy? The ultimate reactive social strategy would be like, okay, there's these different personalities of girls and profiles of girls, and for this girl I'll try to act like this, and for this one I'll try to act like this. If she says this, I'm going to do this. If she says this, I'm going to do this. And yeah. It's like basically you're constantly trying to react to her standards. Do you remember how I spoke about on the very first day that if you're trying to live up to the superficial standards of society, that actually does more harm than good. Even if you reach the standard, it oftentimes does more harm than good because you are now in a mode of reaction. Your day-to-day way of being is in a mode of reaction. So generally speaking, even if, being a bit sloppy on something maybe does not live up to another social standard, if that is how you feel good, it's better to live up to your own standards. Well, that's the thing. A proactive social strategy means living up to your own standards in the interaction, and maybe having which should include consideration for the other person on some level. Whereas a reactive social strategy is like, I'll keep changing myself for everybody. What do you guys think most people live in terms of their social strategy? Proactive or reactive?
Reactive.
Do you think that might cause a little bit of performance anxiety?
Yes.
Right? A little bit of, when you're always trying to modify yourself. A little bit of performance anxiety. In many ways, approach anxiety, certain forms of it could be dubbed as performance anxiety. Because say you're sitting with your friends and you're very quiet, and then you have your pickup man persona. You're like, oh, okay, like I'm being like a fucking slug right now, trying to draw energy off my environment, just like, looking at the surface of things. Oh, there's a girl. Oh, now I've got to like pull myself in and walk up and be like that. It's like a performance anxiety because you don't feel like it's really you. Yeah. But hey, you know what? You got to start somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. You got to start somewhere. I mean, if if you're still in your old bad habits and you see a girl, maybe you should use that as motivation to start somewhere and see the advantages of it. So, even if it's not ideal right away, you got to start somewhere. Anyway, so to answer your question about calibration, look, you can calibrate, and you want to know what's funny? When you're in the moment, a lot of calibration is natural. A lot of calibration you're born with. And actually trying to analyze it and hyperanalyze it moves you away from that natural calibration that you learned as you grew up. So, usually it handles itself. Anyway, look, think of acting through your own intentions. And like I said, acting through your own intentions is an ideal that you move towards throughout your life as you peel back the layer. Think of acting through your own intentions as being a magnet. And whenever you're acting through your own intentions, you feel the girl drawing more closely towards you. And as you're acting, looking for approval, even in the most subtle of subtle ways, because a lot of the ways that we're talking about this weekend are not like the obvious ones, like, hey, you're great, can I buy you a drink? But like the really subtle ones, like you're thinking of what to say next to try to make her keep the conversation going. When you're acting through your own intentions, she's drawn in. When you're acting, trying to get a reaction, she's moved away. Remember how we talked about man is what?
Action.
Woman?
React.
Right? So that's why that acting through your own intention is going to create so much polarity. You guys see the word I have written up here?
Yeah.
Trust. We'll get to that in a second. Most guys overestimate how good what they have to say has to be. We think to ourselves that to talk to the girl, what we say has to be awesome. It has to, hook her attention, that kind of thing. So we overestimate it. Oftentimes, when you're not that skilled with women yet, when what you have to say is not that interesting, you'll find that you lose the girl. Why is that? We covered it. You don't have that, you're not connected to your power as a man. There's no polarity there. So you're only holding it with entertainment. As soon as it runs out, it's gone. Do you remember I said, don't get stuck in the trap when you hear this of being afraid to be entertaining. But it's about entertaining yourselves. All right? So don't be afraid of being entertaining. It's okay to playfully push the girl away. It's okay to flirt. It's okay to be a little bit hard to get. That kind of stuff. I'm not saying there's an issue with it. I'm just saying it's not the core of your skills. You should be able to have success with women without that. If you want to throw that into the mix for your own fun, awesome. All right? So, there's a lot of guys out there that teach all sorts of ideas on how to be hard to get or how to entertain. I think it's all great stuff. Much love to all that, to everyone that teaches this stuff. I'm just saying that from a core perspective, from the foundation, that's the foundation that all this stuff is laid upon. So, thinking. Thought. What is thought? What is thinking? There's different kinds of thought, isn't there? On one level, there's going into your mind and recalling past events. There's projecting into the future. Then there's also like those split second. Is it thoughts or is it just awareness? You know what I'm saying? Like when you're moving around, when you're doing things. When you're having that great night and you're just acting, you're not really thinking, you're just aware. and it's happening through you. You're not really having to think. It's just happening through you. How do we get there? The first thing is knowledge. That's the first step of all this. Knowledge. Understanding that it works. Because you know what? If you don't understand that this works, you'll never even try it. So when you walk up to a woman, is it best to have a good idea of what you want to say?
No.
And start thinking about what you're going to say as you approach?
No.
What is best? What do you want in your mind as you approach a woman to talk to her?
Whatever I say is going to work.
Nothing! All right? The guys that I see that are the most skilled can approach a woman with nothing in mind. There's nothing in their minds. There's nothing going on. They're just feeling good. Remember we talked about the swagger? Just feeling good. There's no need for that preparation, you see, because I think this is the core understanding. When you're speaking with the woman and what you have to say is jumbled, right? Because the woman wants you to be able to speak. If you are fumbling all over yourself, of course she's going to be losing attraction. But when you really get down to the root of it, an attractive guy is an attractive guy. The self is always coming through. And when you're fumbling your words, is it really that she says, oh, this is just not entertaining enough, I'm leaving? Or is it that when you're fumbling your words, it's that you're communicating to her that you have been disconnected from your power as a man, and you've communicated to her your fumbling, stuttering thought processes, your disjointed, scattered mind, because you're not able to communicate. That's really the issue, all right? It's not that what you have to say is not good enough. It's not that what you have to say does not meet her lofty standard, all right? These girls are not like, I have a lofty standard of what a man has to say to me. And if he does not meet that loftiness, I'm going to go to the bathroom or go to dance. That's not what this is. It's that she senses that you are scattered. It's like, what is this guy? Right? What is this guy? He's scattered. Okay, it was nice. It was great to meet you. Have fun. See you later. That's really what it is. And, when I talk about being blown off, I want to stress very carefully here that, a lot of the time that you do get blown off, it's just because the girl really does have to go, or maybe it's because, she's just weird or stuff like that. You don't need to take ownership of it. But I'm just saying, the majority of the time, when you're doing well, it will stick. All right, so that's what I'm talking about here. So how do we get there? Well, first we have that knowledge, lowering your standards. In fact, I've had a lot of guys say to me that if there's one thing that they got out of this, is that they realized that they didn't have to say the perfect thing. Like, by lowering your standards, you can feel confident in what you have to say. Why? Because it's coming from you. That's why. There's two rules in this. Two core principles that you have to have in mind in order to allow that flow. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to unclog you guys here. I want to see you guys unclogged. I want to see you guys spewing forth words whenever. All right? None of this I ran out of things to say syndrome. So the two beliefs. The first one, what you have to say is valuable purely because it comes from you. That's it. When you're talking to a gorgeous girl and whatever she says, some girl that you're attracted to, and what she says, you like it. Why? Because it's coming from her. That's it. What you have to say is valuable because it's coming from you. And next, how about as far as how interesting the content is? Well, the way I would say it is this. What you have to say is interesting, not because of the content, but because she's interested in what you find interesting. Have you guys ever been speaking to a girl about something that you like, and maybe it's not the kind of topic that a girl would be into on her own, but you find it interesting? All right, so look, it doesn't need to be the perfect thing to say. We're going to expand on this topic maybe later today, most likely tomorrow. But you see, the best way that I know to turn off all that noise, because ultimately when you can't think of something to say, it is noise. It's noise that's blocking you, right? Like, if you're talking to your 11-year-old niece, you don't run out of things to say. You run out of things to say when you want something. We'll get more into that. So look, I want to allow you guys to flow. I want to teach you guys how to turn off the noise. And what that's going to come down to is, like I said, trust, and it's trust in yourself. So let me expand on that. Do you remember we said yesterday that in an emergency, most people in general, not that strong, right? They can't handle it. Why? Because there's too much resistance to what's going on. So you remember how I said walk up with nothing in your mind? Walk up with nothing in your mind, right? Most people are like resisting the situation. They're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say, and they're resisting. And it's creating all this like negativity and blocking them. To me, when I'm walking up, all I'm thinking is like, oh, I'm expanding out the party. Oh, let's see if she's cool, right? These are the kind of basic things that I'm thinking. Oh, I want to ask this question. That's it. Oh, here, I want to ask a girl this question. Hey, I want to meet this girl. Let's see if she's cool. Oh, hey, let's expand out the party. Those are like, that's basically your three things. Like, let's see if she's cool. Let's expand out the party. Let's ask this question. That's about the maximum of what I'm thinking. And how far ahead am I thinking? I might be thinking, ooh, my foot is moving forward. This foot is moving forward. Oh, my hand appears to be extending out through some unknown force and pulling her in. All right? That's all that's going on. I'm not thinking ahead. I'm not trying to be a step ahead of myself. I'm just letting the flow happen so that it's 100% natural, at least ideally, 100% natural. So when you think of thinking, this is why it's so counterintuitive. This is so counterintuitive, it's not even funny. What is man's greatest asset, essentially, along with social bonds? What's our greatest asset? Thinking, right? Logic. Thinking. In almost all endeavors, thinking is your greatest asset. But in meeting women, thinking is your greatest weakness. You know, it's the greatest hindrance. It's how you get in your own way. And when you approach a woman and you're not thinking a step ahead, here's what's amazing about it. When she can sense that you're just feeling good in your own body and not thinking a step ahead, she's like, who is this guy? Because it's cocky, right? Like, you know how women respond to like guys that have that little, I don't know if I want to say cocky, if that's the right word, but it's like that little sort of edge of cockiness in a guy. And it's kind of like that youthful masculinity, right? And when you're just kind of sitting there talking to a girl and you're not thinking a step ahead, a lot of the time she'll just start giggling uncontrollably. And she'll say, and she doesn't, and what'll happen is it almost like she feels so much attraction, it puts so much social pressure on her, she'll just start saying, what? She'll be like, what? Right? And then you're just like, just looking, right? You know what we call that? We call that staying with it. Not trying to diffuse the tension. Do you guys see that? Not trying to go into your head to diffuse the tension, staying with the tension. That's why there's something incredibly flirtatious about just being able to look a girl in the eyes and just staying with the tension. Just being with it, like being, right? Are you resisting it? No, it's called non-resistance, right? You're just like, this is what's here. I'm just observing. I'm conscious of it, but I'm not self-conscious of it. So there's incredible cockiness that's there, and an incredible ability to build attraction that you have, just that comes from within yourself. As a man, you have this like innate ability. You don't, it's like a tool that you're born with, right? To create attraction within a woman, that masculinity that you can get in touch with. So it's a cool thing to find out about, that you've got this thing that you didn't even know you had. The way that I think of it is like a childlike attitude. It's a childlike, I see, I take type attitude. You guys ever seen a little baby reaching out for a cookie? Right? If you take a little piece of cake or a cookie or something by the kid just goes, and he tries to get it, right? Can you get mad at the kid?
No.
Could you possibly get mad at a cute kid just trying to take what he sees, what he likes, right? No. Well, to me, the guys that are really, really great with women, okay, if you want to be great with women, you've got to remove your ego out of the equation, like trying to get validation. Like, is the kid trying to get the cookie for validation? No. He's like, when I have this cookie, I'll be the ruler of France, right? Like Napoleon, right? He's not thinking that. He's like, cookie, right? He wants the cookie, okay? The big happy baby. He's got the I see, I take type attitude. And you can't really get mad about that, can you? Like no woman can like be angry at a guy who just has that really pure self-esteem that he just likes her, right? It's like she knows. It's like this guy, like in her mind, she's like, this guy likes me. He can't help it. All right? And there's something that's just very attractive about that because there's none of this ego, this weight, this sucking of value, this emotional vampire leeching of needing validation. I think a lot of you guys, who here's had a girlfriend who is needy and then afterwards realized how unattractive needy behavior is? Anyone ever had that experience? Like, it's so incredibly unattractive that you could never be needy ever again. Because you see it and you're like, that's what this looked like? Like, that's what I was doing? Oh my God, right? Like, just boom. Like, I think, after having, been in a few relationships and now being in a longer-term relationship, I don't think that I'm even capable of neediness at this point. Because, like, it's not that necessarily I'm the most centered guy in the world or something, but it is so icky. Like, neediness and taking value, it's just such an icky feeling that I would not want to put that into anybody. All right? So it's just blah. Anyway, look, you don't think of how she's going to respond. You focus entirely on her. You have fun with her. Challenge her. Let her play at discovering what holds your attention and where your boundaries are. Do you see what I'm saying there? This is called Flirtation 101, guys. Flirtation 101. Let her find out how she can hold your attention and where your personal boundaries are. It's like a girl playing with her dad almost. It can have that kind of vibe to it. Here's the last part of this equation. The last piece of the puzzle here. When you're speaking to the girl, she'll be talking to you. What do most guys do as the girl's speaking?
Think of what to say next.
Yeah, you guys catch that? And Linian, sure, but do you guys see that? Thinking of what to say next. Why are they thinking of what to say next?
They want her reaction to be positive to what they're getting from her. Like, they're giving her feedback, and they need her to react to the feedback so that it pumps their state so they can feel like, oh, this is going well.
Yeah.
So the conversation doesn't die.
So the conversation doesn't die? Yeah, both of those reasons are the two reasons. So you see, you think that it's helping you. Like you're thinking of what to say next, and that's helping you to maintain attraction with that woman. But it's not. What you really want to do, okay, you know what's funny? You know how most, like, social conditioning advice that we get, like, about how to handle women, most of it's kind of weird and, like, not very effective? Well, you know how, like, they say, you should listen to the woman. Like, you should just listen to her. A guy that knows how to listen, that's so attractive. And, of course, we hear that, and we're like, that sounds so chode. Right? Like, just listen to her, man. Listen to her feelings, right? But actually, when taken from this perspective, like in the same way that be yourself is such bad advice for the average chode, right? It's like, be myself. Well, I just want to lavish this girl with gifts, expensive gifts. I'll be myself, right? And it's such bad advice. Well, in the same way, it's like, you just got to listen to her, right? So the chode hears this, and he's like, I just got to listen to everything she says. So he's like, right? And it's just such horrid, nasty advice. But in the same way that be yourself can come full circle, just listen to the girl, it can come full circle. Because when the woman is speaking to you, think of it not so much as the doing, like the talking. It's like, don't think of it so much as the doing, but like the coexistence, like the being, all right, just being together. You can listen to what she's saying, and the actual words of what she's saying, don't judge them. Here, follow this. Don't judge them, don't interpret them, don't compare them, and don't label them. You guys catch that? Judgments, comparisons, labels, interpretations, that does not need to be taking place when you're talking to a woman who you're attracted to. All right? You're not in a business meeting. You are not doing you're not doing a feasibility plan for a business here. All right? Okay? You're not trying to solve a disease. You're just trying to bond with the girl. So, you're speaking with her and she's talking to you, and you can enjoy just listening to what she's saying. So what do you folks... Okay, so it's like, all right, so I'm not supposed to think. I listen to what she's saying. What most guys will do is they're like, okay, so she's talking about lollipops. They're like, lollipops this. Here's how I relate lollipops to my own life. Here's my interpretation of what she's saying. Here's how I compare it to other stories about lollipops that I heard. And there's that opaque wall where there's no real authentic communication going on between you and the girl. So what you want to do is you want to rip down that wall of judgments, interpretations, comparisons, and labels. And you just want to be with what she's saying. So you listen to every word that's coming out of her mouth. Hear the sounds of it. Hear the resonation that's in her voice. Hear, especially if a woman has strong polarity, right? Because when I say that, you learn to see the depth of the woman, a lot of people might think, oh, that means she's highly intelligent, like academically intelligent. And it can mean that. And I can find that, at times I can find that very attractive. But what it can also mean is like the core feminine nature that she has. And that's coming through like in the sound of her voice, in the vibe that you're getting off of her, in the energy that you're getting off her. And this is how you can build an insane inferno of chemistry. That's really what it is, all right? To build really intense chemistry, you can see the depth in her, not just as like a smarty pants, but like as a woman, all right? You can see the depth in her as a woman. So she's speaking to you, and you don't judge what she's saying, all right? Now, you can playfully judge it, right? Like, if you want to kind of like, mess around a little bit, you can say, what? You got to be kidding me, right? And but look at it. It's not really that you're even necessarily having a problem with what she's saying. You're just playfully drawing a boundary. And you can do that, or not. Or you don't even need to. It's really entirely up to you. But the thing is that when you're speaking with her, you just let her talk. And then she finishes, right? She finishes what she has to say. What do most guys do when the girl finishes what she has to say?
Try to establish commonalities
Right?
or whatever.
Establish commonality, say their perspective on it, fill in the silence. Isn't that what they're trying to do? Yeah. Let's quickly fill in the silence. Well, look, if you're stuck in your head, like, okay, say that she finishes talking, and then there's silence now, right? And then you're like, then you go in your head and you're like, oh, I can't think of what to say. What should I say now? And then you take a pause like that, probably is done. Agreed?
Yes.
But what about when she just finishes talking? Again, remember how I was talking about just feeling good within your own body, right? You're feeling good with your own body, and you're just like that, right? Like you're just feeling it. You're almost like feeling the after effects of what she's saying, and you're like, right? And then you just look at her, right? And you ponder it. You're like, and then she maybe starts to giggle or something like that because you're staying with the tension. You're not resisting the tension. You're not resisting like that awkwardness. You're staying with it. So you stay with it. And then she waits, right? And probably what's happening while she's waiting, anticipation is building, right? Because now we're creating something called, maybe you heard of it, sexual tension. You guys ever heard of sexual tension? All right? Yeah. So you're staying with the tension, all right? You're not trying to diffuse the tension. You're not going into your mind. You're not retreating into your mind. You're not flinching and retreating into your mind, into your little shelter, your little bullshit shelter of judgments, interpretations, labels, comparisons, because that is a shelter. All right? Do you guys understand that your entire cognitive model of judgments, interpretations is a shelter between you and facing reality for what it is? Yes. You're not really experiencing it. Like, anyone here like to ever go out hiking in nature? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, when a lot of people go hiking out in nature, and especially when I first started doing it, you're walking along and you're like, how does this hike compare to the other hike? How does that tree compare to some other thing that I saw, right? How is it, is it a nice day today or is it a bad day today, right? And you're doing these little comparisons rather than just enjoying the existence for itself and just not resisting any of it, just being conscious of it and enjoying that, all right? Having that enjoyment. Well, it's the same kind of thing. Guys are so often trying to go into their little shelter of their belief systems, their egos, their comparisons, their judgments, their beliefs, and not experiencing reality head on. And that allows them to diffuse tension, doesn't it? You can diffuse the tension, but that is killing sexual tension. So what I do is I stay with the tension. Because you know what? I don't judge it one way or another. It is what it is. It's enjoyable, all right? And when you can get good at enjoying it, you have a stronger tolerance to that kind of tension. You know an example of a guy that can take a lot of tension would be kind of a funny one. You guys know Sacha Cohen? Yeah. Right? Borat. Okay? Where he can look at a guy, like he can take some like redneck dude from Texas and like start kissing him on the lips and stuff like that. And the guy's like, like that, right? And he's like, oh yeah. He can stand there in front of an audience and say, "We salute your war of terror. We salute your warlord, George Bush." And the whole audience, there's so much tension there. And he's like, okay? He can be with it, all right? And that's an incredibly powerful social skill when you can be with the tension.
And you can do this with like 3 girls and 2 guys, you're talking to them, and you can still stay with the tension?
It's amazing. Really? Yeah, I mean, of course you can, right? You build towards it.
Borat did it.
Yeah, Borat did it to the whole audience, right? He stays with it like that. That's Borat's whole gig, right? It's this whole gig, that he's unreactive, right? He can just totally create chaos in a situation, like chasing the rooster around the subway and stuff like that. Create total chaos, and he can stay with it, right? And of course, what does that do? When you think of comedy, right? They create tension, like they talk about these awkward situations, and the comedian's like, yep. And the whole audience laughs hysterically. Because the comedian is creating the tension, and the comedian does not necessarily need the relief. All right? Have you guys ever heard sometimes you don't laugh at your own jokes because it releases the tension? But see, sometimes I don't like that because then guys get a sense of humor that's just too dry. Like they get this very dry sense of humor. And I think a dry sense of humor is cool, but sometimes it's too dry. I think it's cool to laugh along with your own jokes too. Frankly, I just think it's cool to do whatever the heck you want. But when that laughter of your own jokes is coming from a place where you say a joke and you don't even know if they're going to laugh or not, so you're like, ha 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 ha, before you can even allow them to process it, because you can't even handle waiting to see if they'll laugh or not. So you have to laugh before they can process it. And it's not like you just think it's funny, but because you can't stand the tension. Do you see the subtleties here, guys? How you could have a rule and then subsets of the rule. All right, it's not like a black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray in there. Anyway, be with the tension.
Is tension the same as social pressure?
Yeah, sure. It's just another way of describing it, right? Another way of describing it. So now we talk about trust. And like I said, being able to handle the tension is about trusting yourself. All right, now look. A grown man. Every single one of you guys in here are grown men. Every single one of you guys in here is responsible for yourselves. As a grown man, the major categorical difference between yourself and everyone else is you are responsible for you. All right? Any guy, in his mid-20s and up, if he gets in a car accident or a plane crash or he dies while traveling, nobody looks at that people are like, oh, that's bad, but no one's going to be like, oh, that's horrible, like with women and with children and stuff like that, right, where it's just horrifying. You are responsible for yourself. Nobody in life, other than maybe the couple close friends or family members that you might be likely to have or maybe not, are ultimately going to help you or be responsible for you. You are responsible for yourself. All right? That's why having your own fresh set of eyes is so important. Now, as a man, the fundamental difference, like I said, you're responsible for who you are, you're responsible for yourself, and what that ultimately comes down to, your main responsibility above all else is holding your awareness where it counts. So look, most people are constantly playing out all sorts of imaginary mental movies in their minds about past events or possible future scenarios and don't know how to be what is called present to what's directly in front of them. This comes back to a lot of Eastern philosophy, and you can read it in Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and my personal favorite, the sequel is called New Earth, about how most people live through a set of mental movies about their past. Maybe they get a victim identity out of it. They're thinking about the future and how I can't be happy right now. I can't experience happiness now. So maybe I can find a happy ending in the future. Do you guys also understand how the culture of Hollywood and happy endings even reinforces misery? Because it says misery is okay. Because if you just keep moving towards the future, you're going to get to your happy ending. And people say, there could be a happy ending for me. I don't need to be happy right now. I'm miserable. I'm fucking miserable. But I could have a happy ending when they don't find happiness in the present moment. So as a man, your awareness can be allowed to go where it's useful. And when I say useful, I mean within a range that is okay. So for example, let's say that you're in a subway crash. What do most guys start doing?
Freaking out.
This isn't my fault, man. I don't deserve this. Whose fault is this? They start blaming. In fact, who in here runs a business? Anyone? Any business owners? Have you guys noticed as business owners that the people who work for you have the luxury to complain or whine or anything like that? But you don't have that luxury, do you? You guys know what I'm talking about? You don't have that luxury. Okay? The head honcho does not have the luxury to whine, to point fingers, to blame people, or to take responsibility on anyone other than himself. When you're the leader, there is no one responsible other than you. If somebody else screwed something up, you screwed it up. All right? That's what being a leader is about. Personal responsibility and accountability. So, you cannot be allowing your awareness to go in places where it is not useful. And future projecting has got to be one of the most useless places that it can go on a moment-by-moment basis. Now, does that mean that you should never be thinking about the future?
No.
Of course not. The difference is this. Most people obsess about the future. So they're not thinking about the future through their own intentions. They are compulsively thinking about it because they're displeased with the moment that's directly in front of them. So because they don't like what's in front of them, they think about the future. That's a compulsion. That is not acting through your own intentions. That is acting to escape mentally. So I'm talking about something that's very different than that. Think of it this way. I remember once, who here has ever been to Maui, the island of Maui? Yeah, did any of you guys ever drive the top part of the island, like past Lahaina?
Yeah.
Did you drive past the world's greatest banana bread stand? You did that? Does that drive a little bit scary? Like fucking terrifying?
Yeah, especially with those things.
Yeah, okay. I drove that with my mother and girlfriend and her mother in the car. All right? Now let me tell you, you drive this road, and essentially what it is, let's say that your car is this wide. That's how wide the road is. It's that wide. And as you look down, you see some beautiful scenery, which of course you can see because you are driving on a massive cliff.
That's a death trap.
Yeah. You are driving a massive cliff. And if you just do this, you die. Right? And that's kind of a funny thought. You're like, all I would have to do to find out what the afterlife is like would just be to do this, right? And when you think that thought, you can even feel your hand do that, and you're like, no, you are not doing that, right? Okay? So, and by the way, there's also little falling rocks that come down, right? You don't see them falling, but you can see the little rocks on the ground, and it's a two-way road. So when other cars come, you have to like back up down this road and try to find like a little nook or cranny so that they can like somehow swerve around you, okay? Is it awesome? Was it one of the best experiences of your life driving that road?
I went on a moped.
You went on a moped?
Yeah.
Was it one of the most best experiences of your life?
Yeah.
Me too. I saw God on that trip. Okay? It was amazing. You know why? Because when you think you're about to die, and then you're in that beautiful set, like one of the most beautiful settings in the world, and you look around, you will appreciate it like nothing else, right? It is amazing. There's huge rocks jutting out of the water, like as high as an apartment building. You know the one I'm talking about? That massive rock coming out of the ground. It is incredible. Stuff that dreams are made of. All right? I recommend anyone do it if they can. There's another one also called the Hana Highway that's on the bottom half. Anyway, when you're driving that, and here's the sort of epiphany I had, and this is how my life has been in many ways, and this is absolutely how ultimate success and ultimate victory with women is about. So look, you're driving along. If you think about it, do you normally pull into the oncoming traffic lane?
No.
On a normal highway?
No.
Of course not. You're perfectly capable of not driving off the cliff. It's simple. It's like, yo, just don't drive off the cliff, right? It's simple. Especially if you drive nice and slow, you take it easy. You just drive along, take it easy, enjoy the scenery, and don't think ahead. As long as you're in the moment, everything's fine, right? If you guys stop right now, in this exact moment, is everything not fine? Everything's great, right? It's only the future projection of what negative things could happen in kind of a situation that you're nervous about. That is what creates the anxiety. The actual moment itself, remember how I said be in the moment? Well, the moment itself is totally fine. Now look, driving the road is simple. It's all autopilot. It is so easy. It is so easy to drive that road if you just look at the moment directly in front of you. The road, keep your focus on the road as it's unfolding directly in front of your eyes. And everything's fine. It's when you start thinking of little images in your mind like, ooh, ah, ah, going down the hill. That's when you screw up. But the moment itself is just fine. It is completely okay. So look, most guys approach women, again, with all sorts of crazy mental movies stuck up in their heads. And the best way that I could call resistance is like this, okay? You ever seen a kid, when a kid loses his toy, and he starts clasping himself? Like, right? Like this, right? Like, okay? He's clasping himself. And what happens when you're a kid and you do that, right? You lose your toy. You're like, what happens? What do mommy and daddy do? They beat you, all right? Okay? What do your guys' moms and dads do? What do?
Stop whining.
They give you a hug, right? Well, let's say you're a really little kid, okay? Okay, they give you a hug. What else? They comfort you. Maybe they get your toy for you. So what kind of behavior do we get at a young age?
Reward.
Right?
For whining.
Yeah, reward for what? Like, nah, right? To me, the way that I see the world when I see people doing that, again, I don't judge it, I don't interpret it, I just stay with it. But to me, that's what it looks like. When I see people going, why? Nah, right? It's like, nah, 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 right? Just whining. And think about in your own life where you do it. I do it sometimes. We all do it to an extent. But think about where you do it, right? That resistance to the moment, just not being with the moment. It's like this. I don't want the world to look like this. Like, I don't like this situation. And then someone else comes and fixes it and then makes reality look how you want it to look again, right? Like, kid has toy. I like this reality. Right? He's got the toy. Then the toy falls on the ground, right? And the head gets knocked off of it. Right? And then the dad comes on with the glue, fixes the toy, and then everything's fixed again. So as a child, a very sort of, boyish behavior is to think that if you just blame or get upset about things, that will fix the problem. And so in life, when things go wrong, we get upset. But ultimately, that is not going to fix anything, because guess what? You're an adult now. It doesn't do anything. And you can have that behavior if you want. And you know what? There are institutions that may come and help you, or people that may come and help you. But you got to pay the cost to be the boss. You know what I'm saying? There is a cost to be paid to be the boss. And so if you want to be, leader of men or whatever it is, you can't be the kind of guy who has a low tolerance to resistance. Like a guy who cannot handle what he doesn't like being in front of him. And this is why we say be in the moment, and what being in the moment means. Now look, trust. This word right here. Here's what it comes down to. I want you guys to imagine yourself flying an amazing plane, the most luxurious airplane that you can imagine. And you're flying it along, and the plane is going to land itself. And I want you to imagine that this airplane has an autopilot system that will land that plane completely fine. This system is so sophisticated and so genius that all you need to do is just lay back and allow yourself to land. All right? You're not forcing yourself to land. You're just allowing yourself to land. Imagine this. Now imagine that you start projecting into the future. Imagining yourself crashing. Imagine yourself crashing and burning. And you say, no. And you start taking the controls of the plane and jerking at them. Trying to control it, right? And there's an expression for this. We call it getting in your own way. And that's really where a lot of guys are stuck, isn't it? Is that they're getting in their own way. A lot of the time, becoming successful with women is just about stopping getting in your own way. Not allowing your awareness to go into these stupid future situations where you're going up to the girl and you're like, well, what if she rejects me? All right? That's very childish thinking. Here's the next way that I could put it to you. And this is something that I always really try to focus on myself. First of all, what does it mean to be fully present? The definition itself, again, this is a concept from Eastern philosophy. First of all, your focus is what's going on. Your focus is on the moment that you're in and what's going on in the moment that's unfolding. Second of all, your faculties are not being spread too thin by focusing on past or future events. And third, you melt into the moment rather than struggling against it. And you have full trust in your faculties to carry you forward as issues come up. So look, there are always forces in this world that is tugging at your awareness, isn't it? It tugs at your peace, right? You know that good feeling in your body that you have when you're in the moment? And there's these forces that tug at it. They pull away at it. And in a lot of ways, you could almost call, in the same way that we talked about the strength of your reality as being like a muscle, in many ways, you could think of the strength of your presence as being like a muscle. And these are kind of just playing with words here. But you could almost think of it like that, like how much strength your presence has. All right? So forces like frustration and fear, essentially, they are diseases that creep into you. And once you let them in, they take over and loop your mind endlessly around thoughts that are useless and draining. Think of it this way. Stop and consider how many of your thoughts are useless and repetitive. How many of your thoughts are uselessly and repetitively keeping you from enjoying the moment? Right? Do you remember when we were together up here and just being in the moment and feeling good? And how many of your thoughts are compulsively? It's not really you thinking, right? Because people misinterpret this. They say, so you're just telling me never to think? I know guys like that. I know Tom the weed head. Tom the pothead goes through life like that. He's always in the moment. He's high all the time. And he lives in a van down by the river. Okay? Right? Yeah, he's in the moment in his fucking van. So the thing is like, you think, well, that's not me, right? Because your ego says, no, that is not me. I'm a forward-thinking person. I'm a visionary. I think ahead. I'm always looking to the future, right? You guys remember Howard Hughes? He's like, it's the wave of the future. It's the wave of the future. It's the wave of the future, right? That's how a lot of people, they don't think it's the wave of the future, but they're always, thinking ahead, finding that next thing, and anxiously running towards that next thing. Always looking at the surface of things, never the depth. So, to be able to be present means to be able to take things as they come, not being in that mode, all right? Thinking ahead, when you say, look, for example, we're going to write a business feasibility plan. All right, let's sit down. Let's brainstorm. You guys know the word brainstorming?
Yeah.
Let's use our thinking now. Time to think. Brainstorming time, all right? Say that you are working on something. You're crunching something out. Of course you're going to be thinking. Look, say that you're trying to find directions. You're asking people. Of course you're thinking. But that's you. That's you thinking through your own intention. You acting through your own intention, not being compulsively drawn around because you are not able to hold your awareness where it counts. You're not able to be here. You're being pulled away, and your thoughts are all over the place. So what are the consequences of that? I mean, what are the consequences to losing the moment?
Addiction to state.
What does that mean?
Like you have a positive emotion, and you know it's temporary, and as soon as it leaves, you're like, oh, I need that back. So you start grasping. It's what they call in Eastern philosophy for that state. But whatever the existing condition is no longer there. So because you're not being present, you're just like you're screwed because you're in a downward spiral of emotional neediness, and essentially you're addicted to your own emotion that no longer. The conditions aren't being met anymore. So you're just like, oh, this sucks. I felt good a minute ago, and now I don't. But you're resisting it, so it just never goes away.
Sure.
That's how most people live their lives, actually.
Scattered.